Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scotchers morning coffee or tea with AmericanScotcher.com. I think I normally go by rotation with the grumpy on Mondays, but I have coffee in the greatest dad, starting out the week great. Matush, the Polish prince, is with us as he is every Monday, joining us with. He said he was brewing actual tea. That was his excuse for shopping, like hopping up to the broadcast like 30
See,
seconds before we went on air.
you can see the inside. It's
I can
it's
see the inside. That could be anything.
it's not chocolate milk. It's not sparkling water, and there might be something else in the tea. Who knows?
Yes, that's the only question over there. But hey, more power to you. At least it is the Alan is with us as always. First and good morning, Alan.
Good
Um,
morning.
lot to get to over the weekend. I need to go grab some salt so I can rub it into your wounds. Had to be a painful weekend, I would think, because I know we talked about this before that you're more for Poland than the U.S.
Yeah,
Did one of them hurt more than the other just because of the way they unfolded or anything like that, or were they both kind of expected? So it is
you
what it is.
know the U.S. was sort of expected. That one I didn't really feel much with that one. With Poland, the interesting thing was I kind of expected them to not go through. We all, I mean, we all felt like France was the much stronger team going into it, but the way that Poland played was a lot better than I think most people expected. And I think that's what made it a little hurt a little bit in the end, is that they did play well enough that if Jelinski does put that chance away in the first half,
Yeah.
with that the double save by Loris, who knows what happens the rest of the game. And so that's the only thing I'm still not that upset because I tempered my expectations going into it, but who knows what could have happened if a couple balls land a different way. Yeah. So
I was like, I told you throughout the tournament, I was kind of shocked with how timid, I guess, is a good word in terms of like how Poland was approaching every single game. And I know the guy they have is more of a finisher, not really a threat when he has the ball. Like you're not that afraid when Lewandowski is coming at you with the ball, like you are with Mbappe or somebody like
yeah,
that. But maybe that's why it makes it harder for when you have a guy like that as your targets man. But I just felt like going forwards, they definitely did not do the best defense's offense when they looked at that their own back line. They were like, we're just gonna sit back. But I just didn't feel like Lewandowski is not that suited for a team that's playing counterattack.
yeah. No, I mean he's suited for a team that holds the ball for a lot of possession. And I mean that's kind of where he's with Bayern. We saw him at his best because that's how they played. They just had possession all the time, and they had the talent to be able to play out wide and then send the ball in to find Lewandowski as he's making those runs. Poland just doesn't have enough quality going forward to make that happen. We saw a lot of times where Zielinski would get the ball in the middle of the pitch and there was no one to pass to. He kind of just he would take the ball, he would take it for a few seconds and look one way, look the other way, make a turn, and then by that time he's like, "What am I supposed to do?" And he just passes it off to either Cash on the right or Bereshinsky on the left. I mean, just like there wasn't much. France gave them the middle of the field. They're like, you know what, you can have this. Let's see what you can do with it. Kind of like the Netherlands against the U.S. They're like, look, try to beat us with the ball. You go ahead. We're going to give you the ball. Do what you can. And I felt like Poland had their chances, and there wasn't enough quality. And I don't know if I don't know if the right 11 played, because it's one of those things. Just like with the U.S. match, it's easy to look back on too in hindsight, right? We can all sit back and go, well, if Gio and Aronson played, there would have been a different match. Yeah, it could have been a different match, but it also could have been a different match in worse ways, perhaps. So who knows? So I know it's always easy to look back on some things like that, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I just don't think they have the quality, and maybe I don't know if this was Lewandowski's last World Cup. He'll be 37 by the time the next one rolls around, and I mean, Kamil Glik is 37. He's playing on the back line, shutting Mbappe down. You know, shutting Mbappe down. So yeah, we might still see him again.
I would think he could be there as if they qualify and stuff, I see him being there as coming off the bench, goal chance guy or something like that, like after the
Kind of like
60th
a
or something like that. But you
Suarez.
never know. I mean, the way, like I say, the way he plays is not too reliant on speed or anything like that. It's more about finishing and
Yeah.
positioning. So I guess maybe he could keep going. Heck, Ruiz was still there for Costa Rica, so there's always hope for old guys like me. But let's go back to that U.S. game, because I think that was kind of interesting where US almost made like a starting 11 expecting to, okay, we're going to have to hit him on the counter because they're going to. And then Netherlands basically said, what do you guys suck at? That's right, breaking down defenses. Well, here's the ball. Here's a test for you. Let's see if you can break us down. And I really think that's like automatically caught him by surprise. And they just were not able to obviously open them up.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, and I think that's kind of we talked a lot on the Discord about all the decisions made by Berhalter and how the U.S. is going to play and how they set up, and I think I do have to give Berhalter credit in the sense that he picked the team that he thought would be best suited to take on the onslaught of the Dutch, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense, but then once you see how Netherlands is essentially setting up and how they're letting you play, you have to try and make some sort of tactical change within the match. And I know by halftime it was 2-0, so it was a little difficult because then you're on the back foot. You have to really go for it in the second half. But there probably were chances in the first half where he could kind of try and shout some directions to some guys to let them know, hey, like this is where there's some space where you can go. And again, if Pulisic hits that goal in that second minute, again, that could be a completely different match, and we could have been sitting here praising Berhalter for all that we know. And it's just, this is a sport where it just comes down to a couple moments, and those are the moments that we're gonna remember and talk about, and not much else matters past that for many people, especially in a World Cup, right? Because during a season of, when you have a club season, you have 38 matches. Let's Premier League 38, depends on the league you're in. There are a couple moments that you might look back on and go, shoot, I wish I would have done something different.
Yeah.
But there are a lot more moments that can make up for it. World Cup, I mean, especially in a knockout game, you get 90 minutes, you miss that one moment, that's it. You don't get that again. So it stings a little harder. And so I think the Dutch were clever in the sense that, hey, we know exactly what they've been struggling at, and let's see if they can do it.
It seemed like the disease, though, for a lot of these teams that, lost to the favorite at the end, despite maybe initially at least playing at the same level. Because Senegal game was the same way, really. I mean, against England, where they had that moments like right before the goal where they were like kind of like all at him. But it's just like, you can't finish. And then, yes, like the difference comes out when you have these top teams. And I don't know if it's the confidence level. I don't know if that's the quality of players they have at times, is they finish and they're a lot more clinical and then they score. Reminds me of like in the NFL where, you have a favorite team and you have another team. The other team starts out really good, but ends up getting like, dominating the first 8 minutes, but mustering 2 field goals because they can't just get it over the end zone. And then, and then
they lose 28-6.
Getting 1 touchdown, and you're like, what the hell happened? We dominated the first quarter, but we're losing. And then it just goes out like that. So I think it's just a matter of, having those, being able to be clinical in those moments. And I don't know if it's just the excitement sometimes of being the underdog and being in that situation makes you kind of maybe overstress it a little bit more. But yeah, it seems like it's been a trend in every single game I've seen so far, especially in this round. Ryan says, hey, dudes, the American team looked super tired due to having a very thin squad during the entire World Cup. They obviously had other issues, but playing 13 deep is a problem. And I agree to that. I mean, I think, and the problem is, as you dig into past the 13, you're getting into a lot more Major League Soccer guys, I think, and they are not able to handle the pace, the physicality, and stuff like that on the field. So do you think, and yes, Sparky Parker says cream will always rise to the top. And that's what I think ends up happening. But I don't know. it's just a matter of being the cream at that time, or just because, being the underdog kind of like
Sometimes the cream curdles,
yeah, you
like
hit it a bit harder than maybe you should in that moment and stuff like that. Whereas, or here's another thing, I think sometimes, and we see this in like a regular league games too, where if you feel like those chances are going to keep coming, you're a bit more relaxed when taking the chances as a player.
yeah.
When you think this is it, I don't know if I'll be able to get here again, it's just a whole lot different, and you kind of stress that shot a lot more, and I think that causes some of it too. But I do agree, like, I mean, obviously it's a quality difference as well between Mbappe finishing and stuff like that. I think it's just that confidence that comes through. So going back to Ryan's points, I mean, the depth obviously was an issue, especially with the style they play. It's like a very high energy, run around like crazy, press all over this thing. Is that, do you think, like one of the factors that hurt him, or is it just going to the cream thing with Sparky?
Could absolutely be the case. We see similar situation with Liverpool. When you only have a certain amount of guys that are fit to play or have enough quality to play, we're only going to see those guys. And if you keep pushing those same guys over and over, they're going to get to a breaking point. And yeah, I think it might have been a different case if this was held over the summer and you had those guys playing those 4 games. Rather than it coming in the winter and having a lot of these guys already coming off of a lot of minutes during the season. Like someone like Tyler Adams, who plays all the time for Leeds, and he plays kind of a similar style too. Like I'm shocked that he is still standing throughout the rest of the match there, because he was just absolutely incredible. But I think it's going back to also like why wasn't Reina played throughout, more often throughout the first 3 games? Why wasn't Jesus Ferreira played more if he felt he was more confident? If you feel that Jesus Ferreira is good enough to start the knockout match against the Dutch, why didn't he play at all during the group stage? Like, why wouldn't you give some guys more rest throughout the group? Like, it just, I think there is still, while there's not that much depth past those 13, 14 guys, I think there were still decisions that could have been made before that would have allowed for a little bit of more more rest for some of these guys, especially if you have guys like Reina and Aronson coming off the bench every game. I don't know.
And that was the thing, and I know when it changed it, because Ryan says like bad job with substitutions as well. And I know, when those guys came in, it was suddenly different. But I always get that sense that, well, because the game is different. Like when those guys start on the front foot, and if you're more attacking, you don't know how some of those guys will track back and defend a counter. And since Netherlands was kind of like playing for that, I can kind of see that. And obviously, when you're chasing the game, I mean, Netherlands was just so content, which I was kind of shocked myself. So I don't blame the US for being shocked. I was shocked myself that they were like, hey, you guys have the ball. We're just going to sit back. They got 2 fast guys up top. They'll do something. And then they just that's what they did. And they knew US could not break them down. And I really liked how their defensive shape was, almost forcing those 2 center backs to do the build-up. And they could not. What I was shocked over there watching that is, you see this with Liverpool, you see this with most teams. When that happens and when those center backs are that's kind of like almost like isolated to build play, you usually have somebody from midfield come down and almost like step back as almost like a third center back, if you will, in middle of those guys and build play. I was amazed US never did that. Nobody ever came down. Like they didn't bring Pulisic back to drop back and maybe pick up that ball and do something with it, or like Tyler Adams or somebody like that. And they just kept doing it. And Netherlands was like, this is great because it's not working. You guys just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Are you Absolutely. Sure that they don't have that guy, or nobody took that initiative, or I guess they weren't asked to take that initiative?
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that wasn't the way they wanted to go. But to your point, it seemed like that was exactly what could help break down that defense, is if you have that one guy to come in and take the lead on that. But we don't always know what kind of directions these guys are given, and we sometimes want some of these players to do things that they are capable of doing, but they won't do or they can't do because of certain instructions or directions. And you don't want to be that player that tries that one thing that you were told not to do and for it to go really poorly, and that just magnifies that decision of you not to do that even more. Whereas, if you do happen to do something that you're not supposed to, but you get away with it, kind of like in the when you're playing basketball, you take like a 40-foot 3-pointer because you're open. Your coach is like, "What do you do?" Oh, went in. Okay, that's fine. Just don't do that again. Like, that kind of situation. But that's, you get away with that a lot more in a sport like basketball, where you have those opportunities come every 30 seconds roughly.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
it's so back and forth. It's a little different, but yeah, it's, I don't know if anyone had the instruction to do it, because I think we could see a few guys. I think like Aronson, I think Pulisic, I think Reyna, I think Adams. I think those four guys could do that rather well if they were given the opportunity. I just don't know if they were told to do it.
So I mean, between like your Polish boys and your American boys, I think the biggest difference, I assume, ending the tournament is with the US. There is a lot more optimism coming out of it in terms of these guys are young, and there's no guarantee to that they're going to be this much better in 3.5 years or
Yeah.
whatever. There's no guarantee to that, but they're going to be home and other things like that going for them. Whereas you look at the Polish team and you just don't know what it's going to be in 3 years. It could necessarily be a lot worse if you think about it too.
I mean, I think they're lucky that the tournament's going to be extended to 48 teams, because that's the only way they're going to make it back in there. If it was still the same amount right now, where it was at 24, I don't think they would have a chance to get in. And so, or I mean, 32, sorry. I don't think they would have had a chance to get in. I don't know. I don't have any faith in that team. They're looking at who was there this World Cup and who is capable of being there in 3.5 years. Because 3.5 years, I understand that there could be new players that spring up that that you don't know of that can make the team, but not a whole team. There's no way you get 11 new guys in 3.5 years. I mean, unless you have 11 17-year-olds waiting on the wings that we don't really know of yet, and they just explode on the scene when they're 19 and 20 years old. But it's not going to happen. There's like 2 or 3 youngish guys on the Poland team that I think will still be there in 3.5 years. But other than that, Matty Cash will be there. He did have a great game yesterday. I
wanted to rub that in.
his best game wearing the Poland shirt for sure. He gave Mbappe a lot of okay, I don't want to say a lot of difficulties, because Mbappe didn't have a lot of difficulties. He gave Mbappe more to think about, I guess, than normal. I think I had it up here. There's an interview he had after the game, and he said something about Mbappe. Mbappe burned my legs, he said. So it makes sense. I mean, it would hurt trying to mark that man the whole time. But going off tangents here, but yeah, I don't know if there's enough talent in Poland to be excited for 2026. Whereas the Americans, and we kind of talked about this with either it was Trevor at one point or Alex, like both of us felt that if they had a decent enough tournament, there would be enough excitement going into 2026, thinking, okay, they got this far, they've got this young core of guys, let's build on it, let's see what we can do. Whereas if they crashed and burned out of this tournament, it would have been kind of a more somber, a little we wouldn't want to look forward to 2026, so we had no idea what would happen. So I think now at this point, seeing how they played and seeing the level that they could play at times, I think we could see more people being more excited for the tournament in 3.5 years, and especially since it'll be home and they'll have a lot more support than any other team, or they could, I should say.
You never know. Yeah. People travel well too. But I mean, here's the thing, and that's what I was going to ask you. And it almost felt like US when the game was over, and I kind of like talked about this on the Discord channel. I kind of like asked you about it, like kind of like good, interesting topic, because I want to hear people's takes on it too, how they feel or if they care or not. But when the US game ended, I mean, especially Pulisic, probably because he missed that chance maybe or whatever, but you could feel that, they were pained by that loss. And I know sometimes that kind of helps. I just go back to our like Champions League final, for example. Sometimes sitting there and feeling that pain more kind of is a fuel for doing better next time. And, some players use it as a fuel. When the Poland game ended, I got like really bad NBA vibes where they were like a lot of like laughters, hugs and stuff like that. Like, oh man, I'll catch you later tonight's kind of a deal. I mean, to me, and I'm, obviously I'm Turkish watching it, I thought it was odd. And I felt like, I would kind of not like seeing that. And I would rather see like Pulisic's reaction or some of the American players' reaction of being devastated of not going further, regardless if you're like an underdog or whatever. It doesn't matter what situation you lose in. It shows more care. Do you think Like, what did you think? Like, as a Polish guy,
Yeah,
like watching that, you're like, what the hell, you
it
know?
was weird. It was just like I especially like out of the two that I expected most to have any sort of feelings of just of sadness and thinking like, hey, this could have very well been the last time I will ever get to do that with Kamil Glik and Robert Lewandowski. And they're sitting there high fiving, smiling, laughing, and talking to other guys. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm weird. Like maybe I shouldn't. Maybe they're happy that they got this far. Maybe they didn't expect to get out of the group stage. I don't know. Like is it at a level where they felt like they did more than they thought they were going to, and they're just happy that they were along for the ride? Because it seemed a little weird. I think, and it's one of those things where maybe, like I was saying in the Discord, maybe for some of these guys, they were even shocked to get a chance still, like Gleek. Because I mean, granted, it's very difficult for me to sit here and say he's the best center back Poland has, considering his skill and his age and all that. But I mean, this tournament he was, and I think maybe he was just so happy that he was still able to do this at his age and able to get a chance to do this. So maybe that's one of the things. And I know that he played in France for a little bit, so maybe he was just talking with some former teammates that he played with, and I don't know. It's just I think if it was closer, there probably would have been more of a feeling of disappointment. But kind of like what you said on the Discord is like that at that point they knew it was over for probably 20 minutes. They didn't really, they're just going through the motions. And then that last goal, it was just kind of salt in the wound because he missed the first one and they only got a chance to score because Lloris went off his line. And it was almost like I didn't even want him to take the penalty at that point because it was just, I was just so upset. I was like, this is another opportunity for you to score. They're giving you this penalty and you blew it again. Like this is again at the international tournament level, Lewandowski blowing it again. And so I think at that point, maybe they were just so content with the understanding that this was never a game they were going to win, and that they were just happy being on the field with a bunch of French players.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was odd. Sparky says USA and Poland overachieved and happy to get that far. But like I say, that's why despite that, you saw the American reaction being totally different. And it could be very well be that. I mean, that France game was over for quite some time. So maybe in the last 15, 20 minutes, they're already pained in their heads. And when the whistle blows, I mean, maybe they felt it could have been a lot worse and they were just happy to get the hell out of there too without being embarrassed or anything like that. It was just like a loss. But yeah, I just like as I was watching it, I was like, why are you guys so goddamn happy? Like it's just like you guys know it's over, right? This is not group stages. This
Give
was
us
like
one frown, assholes.
So Ryan is talking about this, and there's like two headlines really like to talk about from the England game, which was over a lot sooner than I thought it would be. Think of the Bellingham Henderson love on that goal, also the Bellingham overall on social media. He says most likely nothing, but we can always hope like he leaves the door open. And I think so too. Here's the thing. If I'm giving you 10 million and then hang out with me, it could be a lot different than somebody giving 2 million and hanging out with your buddy. You might be like, man, I really don't want to hang out with this Turkish guy, but 10 million is a lot of money, and then come over and hang out with me. But maybe if they're giving 10 with me and 9 with your best buddy, you'll be like, hey Tim, man, it's been fun, but I'm just gonna go hang out with this dude. So I think maybe it could be a tiebreaker. I just don't see these guys making decisions solely based on that at this level, right?
Yeah, I think everyone has agents and everyone has their social media managers, and I think part of it sometimes you're given sort of a rough template of what to post. B, the social media managers understand what is going on in the context of fans and what these fans are feeding off of. And so if they give us something like, yeah, let's troll them. Like they're going to love this. Let's keep doing this and give them absolute hope and then just crush their dreams at the end of it. So I think it's a little bit of a mixture of there's a certain thing that they have to post. And also they might just be friends too at the end of the day. Especially someone like Trent and Bellingham, closer in age, I feel like they could just be decent friends. And that's just something where you might have guys that click, like we we saw the American Olympics basketball. Wow, we're speaking a lot about different sports today. The USA Olympics team, when you had LeBron with Wade and Bosh become really good friends in that 2008 team, and then they got together 3-4 years later. So sometimes, yes.
So social media thing.
So sometimes you just become friends, and something happens out of it. But other times, I just think they're just having fun because they know that the fans are feeding off of it so much that they're like, you know what, let's just do it. And if anything comes of it, then they can look back on it and go, oh, Agent Trent, yeah, that was really good. Or if it doesn't happen, they'll go, well, maybe they were just doing it just because they were friends and they liked each other.
Yeah, I mean, I can see somebody saying, like I say, if money difference is not huge and you kind of like, looking at the different situations, it's just like job offers you get, right? You're kind of like looking at the pluses and minuses. I mean, obviously it would be a huge plus to be able to go play with Hendo, but at the same time, Bellingham could be thinking, well, in 2 years, Hendo is not going to be there anyway. I mean, obviously Trent would be there.
You could be playing with Valverde. Why would you want to play with Hendo in 2 years when Hendo's not there when you could play with Valverde in 2 years?
And that's the thing. It's just like, I don't know. There's a lot to weigh in there, but I can kind of see where he could say, yeah, I would like to be a lot more comfortable there, be in the environment that I'm happy in. And being happy is half the battle in terms of, performing on the field afterwards. But I mean, dude, the more I watch this guy, though, it just feels like let's just pay whatever the fuck it takes and bring him in, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel we've almost been on that train for a year now. With following him. And I know overall people have followed him for more than a year, but this last year, especially after the summer, after not really getting that marquee midfielder that we were looking for, it kind of intensified that a little bit. And then watching him this entire World Cup, it's just been so much fun to see how good he is, and how well he plays with a lot of good talents around him. Because there's some guys who can play with a lot of good talent and look okay. But then there's also another level of being able to play really well at this young of an age with all of these different stars around you and make it work. Because there's absolutely a chance where you're 19, 20 years old and you're trying to play with the likes of, Harry Kane and Saka and Hendo, and you're just like, I don't know how I'm going to fit. I'm not confident enough. I don't think I'm good enough to play with these guys. Whereas Bellingham was like, I'm better than all of these guys. That's kind of like, I feel like that's how he feels. He just, every time he's on the field, he's just, I'm the best player on this field. I'm going to show you why. Rather than kind of sinking and going, well, I've got all these really good players around me that can kind of do their own thing. So I'm just going to let Harry be Harry and, whatever.
Harry be Harry. And then they're like, yeah, I mean, the more we watch it, I was like, we should have sealed this deal. But again, I'm sure Dortmund knew this all along. They were like, just wait till he shows up in the World Cup and we get another like 40% of our regular asking price would be. And that's why they didn't want to sell in the first place. Another headline. I hate to put Neymar on the screen. So hold on. Let me try to see that. Okay, let me gray him out and do this like this. And let's not put Neymar on the screen. I didn't give you a chance. England Sterling yesterday ruled out due to family matter, and actually it ended up being his a break-in. I heard like an armed robbery, and I don't know what that refers to in England. It could be like they showed up with a knife or something too. But what do you make of that? My initial reaction was, I mean, I'm sure he has people to take care of these things, but at the same time, thinking about it more, I'm guessing they're like, hey, your head is not going to be here anyway. Your head is going to be there. So might as well have your body over there too. And, just focus on that because you're definitely not going to be able to focus on the game. Why have a guy out on the field or even on the bench where his focus is not really game? He's thinking about home and you can't blame him for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think if this was a situation where the robbery was just materialistic, where no one was home. They broke in. They grabbed a bunch of stuff. They left. Fine. You lose some things. Whatever, it happens. But the fact that it was an armed robbery with his family in there, that really makes it much more personal and much more emotional. And in that situation, I don't think most people would be able to be even on the bench physically and still be present there. So at that point, you're not going to want to be called up to play. You know, you don't want Gareth to look at you and go, "Hey, warm up, you're coming on." Like, because you're like, I'm not even thinking about the game right now. I don't want to be here. I don't know why I'm being called subbed on. But I guess that's some players. For other players, I think the game can be a distraction from the outside world. So there's a level to, hey, you need to play to be able to get out of your head. But if you're not 100% knowing that you're going to be playing, and you don't want to sit on the bench, because then that's when you start thinking about all those things. And why would you take the risk of sitting on the bench and having all those feelings come up? Whereas if you knew you're going to play, maybe playing would be the best way to not think about it, because you whenever you're on the field, on the court, whatever it is you're doing, you tend to just block everything out. And this is it. This is this is your goal right now.
And I don't know if it would be a different scenario if it was just like the final or something like that, and he would react to it and handle it differently. Sparky says, why isn't his family with him? Most players have them there. I don't know. I mean, we don't even know who was home. Like, that could be even worse, where your main core family is with you, but, like somebody who's more maybe vulnerable or like mature enough is left in that situation. I haven't read into the details of it. Like I say, I can see how his mind would not be in there. And you would think, if somebody's taking advantage of the situation, because as Alan points out, there has been a previous attempt to break into one of his homes. Obviously, they know the situation where maybe he's not there, or his main family is not there because they're with him at the tournament and stuff like that too. Because obviously,
I don't think the question of why isn't his family with him at Qatar, that's not a question to ask. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like, we shouldn't be focusing on that. It's one of those just silly things that it doesn't matter why his family wasn't there with him. If his family's not with him, his family's not with him. Like, you can't just think that every single family is going to be with every single athlete in Qatar all the time. There's also other things that need to be taken care of. There's school, there's work. I get that if you're a high profile athlete, you have enough money to take care of these things. But a lot of players, like, let's say, I don't know, you're thinking of players from Australia or Tunisia. I mean, just players that don't get paid a lot of money to play in their respective clubs. Like, they don't have enough to bring everyone over and make everyone stop doing what they're doing for a month, possibly. So I don't know. It's a question that doesn't matter. I think it's more important to ask is he okay? And
I think that's the thing, because otherwise, I mean, Sterling has enough money to pick up the phone and hire a security company and have a squad of fucking like 8 guys go in a van and just like protect the house like it's a military base. But that doesn't still, cancel out the fact that there are people who have been hurt or shocked or whatever that had to be consoled, taken care of, because those security guys are not going to provide psychological support to the ones that were kind of traumatized by what happened. So, like I say, my initial reaction was like, why did he have to? But then I was like, well, I can kind of see that too, because if something like that happened, with us, we would try to drop everything we're doing and head over there. So I can understand that. I mean, I don't know. I think that's kind of like I don't know if I like that approach, to be honest with you, Sparky. If I'm beef up security while away, he's not a like person in the UK. I mean, that
doesn't justify getting.
There's a lot of not like people in the UK. I'm sure of the list of Sterling being in there. And honestly, it's like the douchebags involved in the equation are the guys breaking in, and not just him hiring enough security and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I just felt my initial reaction was, oh, why? But then I understand it more and more as I look into it. And it's sad seeing this, because we see it over and over again that these guys' houses are getting broken into while they're at a game and stuff like that. And I can understand why they would not want that squad of military around their house, because at the end, it's still a home. While I'm sure, Sparky, you and me want to protect our household too, we also want our privacy and being able to enjoy a normal life and not have 3 guys at the door at any given time, because, I'm probably just as unliked as Sterling is, so you never know. Let's look at the schedule for today, get some predictions from you. We forgot to kind of touch up on the Argentina game, Messi and all that kind of good stuff. I felt like the game was kind of over, and then Australia scored, and Argentina was like, oh, shit, that's right.
They're like, oh, God, we need to play for another 20 minutes. This is awful.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. So I was not I kind of felt the game was done. The only thing it might show is some of the vulnerabilities that Argentina might have, but I don't know. That was mainly in the beginning of the game. They sure didn't have it because they were more on top of it. So, but 2 games today. First one, a really interesting matchup with Japan versus Croatia. And then we have Brazil versus South Korea. That's more of like the underdog fighting freaking Neymar's ankle kind of thing. I'm just hoping they break it for good so that the rest of the tournament I can go for Brazil. Just just take it to the back and shoot it and beat it done and over with. Who do you like in these 2 games?
I like Japan over Croatia, and that was one of my upset picks for our pool. I'm a little disappointed you haven't run the ticker, but again,
you are number 1 again?
No, your wife is number 1. So,
okay, yeah.
Out of respect for Angie, you should be running the ticker for her.
Okay, let's do that because this might be, and I'm too, and honestly, because I look at the Uras family just dominating this pool, by the way. But that's because I went with the surprise of Senegal, and she stuck with England, and there we go. Yeah, let me fix that while you're going that because the last ticker I have. A moment of silence for you being number 1 in the World Cup pool. This was from last Monday, so
just give it today, and we'll be fine. Because I think you picked Croatia over Japan.
Did I really? Okay,
yes.
I think I went with the physicality on that.
Yeah, so I went Japan, and then I didn't know who to pick to win the whole thing. I just don't. There wasn't a single team where I looked at it and went, I like you a lot. I pretty much looked at everyone and went, I don't really like you. So I ended up with Brazil out of everything. But if that means that South Korea beats them today, I will be very happy. I don't care if my entire bracket goes to shambles because I would be rooting hard for South Korea. I will be rooting hard for South Korea today. And so I'm looking at Japan and Brazil going through today, but I would be pretty happy if Japan and South Korea were able to pull it through.
See, there you go. The ticker's there. Angie Ross is number 1 in the World Cup pool. I don't know. What is Angie's style? Is she like the first lady of American Scouts or something like that? I couldn't find a title for her.
Okay, well, you're a dictator, so there is no first lady.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. That's right. So what would she be? Like just the wife of a dictator?
Just, yeah.
That's not cool. That's not as cool
your title. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna like that, but she'll like the ticker. I don't know about the wife of.
She picked Japan.
She did pick Japan.
She picked Japan over Croatia.
I'm really gonna root for Croatia.
Oh, this is
my
awesome.
Comeback chance right here.
Yeah,
awesome. It's been interesting. As of now, Angie's 1 with 59 points. I'm 2 with 58 points, and last week's number 1, Mateusz, is there with 53. And I was going to rub in, but Gally is slowly climbing up. He was dead last at one point. I was going to rub it in, but he's up to 24 now. So that ammo is gone for tonight's podcast. Well, Mateusz, time for I don't know if the tea is done for the second cup yet. It takes you a while to brew it, so I know from this morning's experience. So I'll go grab the second cup of coffee too. We'll be back tonight with the podcast live at 8:00 Central with Gally and Bickler. I'm sure there'll be a lot of like the national team talk over there as well, especially with Gally's rant. And I want to just rub it into Paul that he was following and rooting from just being this guy who doesn't care about the national team to suddenly becoming a huge rah.
They made a believer out of him.
Yeah, I can just see Bickler wearing a "It's Soccer Not Football" shirt watching the So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a little bit on that tonight as well. So tune in for that, and then I'll also be back tomorrow morning, first thing with the morning cup of coffee. So grab a cup and join us. I know it's Monday, but make the best of it. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.